Welcome to today's one-of-a-kind RootsMagic webinar. My name is Michael Booth. I am Vice President of RootsMagic and one of its developers. And also with us this evening is the Roots magician himself, Bruce Busby. And Bruce, of course, is the president of RootsMagic and its author. Now, have you ever wanted to tell RootsMagic exactly how you want a source or narrative sentence to look? Well, RootsMagic uses templates for sentences and sources which let you customize them to your heart's content. And tonight we'll get an overview of how to use, modify, and create these templates in RootsMagic. And with that introduction, I'll turn the time over to Bruce.
Hey, thanks for joining us. Okay, this particular topic, sentence templates and source templates, is actually a topic that we could probably spend hours, well, not probably, we could spend hours and hours and hours on. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to give an overview of templates. I'm going to kind of talk about what is a template and how can you edit it and that type of thing. What I'm not going to do in this particular webinar is go into the dirty nuts and bolts of customizing templates with all. We'll mention it as an overview, but what we're going to do is we are going to schedule at least 2 more webinars. One is going to be just on customizing sentence templates, and the other one is going to be on customizing source templates. Okay, and what we're going to do, like I say here today, is we are going to kind of do an overview of what are templates and how can I access templates and what do templates do for me and that type of thing. So let me go ahead and okay, I am going to have to bring this over here. Okay, so the first question we're going to have here is, what is a template? Okay, now a template, you can have a template for sentences. In other words, John Doe was born on this date in this place. And you can have templates for sources, which basically says, if I take these particular pieces of information that are typed in, it's going to put them all together into a nicely formatted source. And so let me give you an example of what a template is. It's a sentence with fields that are replaced with data from your file. Okay, so let's look at this. This is a very, very basic, simple template. Don't worry about the color coding. I only colored these items just to kind of make it a little bit more clear what we're doing. But this is a sentence template. This template has 3 fields. It has a field called person, it has a field called date, and it has a field called place. Okay, and RootsMagic knows that it's a field because it has those square brackets around it. Okay, now let's say I've got this sentence template, and what I've said is anytime I need to write a sentence about somebody's birth, this is what I want it to look like. You know, if it was a template about death, it might say person died, date, place, or person was married, date, place. Okay, so each fact type has its own sentence template. So every type of fact I have has its own sentence template, and we're going to show you that in just a little bit. So let's say I've got this is my sentence template for births, and this is the information that I have. John Doe, when he was born and where he was born. When RootsMagic encounters this template with this data, what it's going to do is it's going to say, we're going to replace that person field. We're going to replace that with John Doe. We're going to replace that date with that person's birth date, and we're going to replace that place with Avon, Polk, Iowa, United States. So what's going to happen is when RootsMagic prints a report or, you know, whatever, where it's going to use this sentence template, that template is going to eventually end up looking like this. John Doe was born 1 January 1800 in Avon, Polk, Iowa, United States. Now, there's a couple of things you might notice here. One of those is the place was Avon Polk, Iowa. But you'll notice RootsMagic put the word in there for me. Okay, RootsMagic has some smarts so that when you put in one of these fields, it tries to actually be smart enough to know that, hey, there's certain words that may or may not need to be in there for this sentence to sound right. Okay, date will do the same thing. If all you had for the date was 1800, it's not going to say John Doe was born 1800. It's going to say John Doe was born in 1800, or John Doe was born in January. Okay, so if it doesn't actually have a day, it will take care of that. Now, if you want to override that if RootsMagic putting in those extra words, you can, and we'll show you a little bit of that, how you can do that, and we'll go into a lot more detail in those future webinars. Okay, so let's go ahead and hop out of here, and I'm going to go back to the database, and let's go ahead, now that we kind of have an idea what a template looks like, let's kind of see what we're doing. Now, there's two different kinds of templates. The one I just showed you is what's called a sentence template. So every fact can have its own template, so it knows how to write a sentence for that fact type. There's also a template type called a source template. Now, they're very similar in that they both have fields, and RootsMagic plugs data to replace those fields. The difference is that the sentence has predefined fields. So when you create a sentence template, there's only a certain number of fields that you can actually use. You can use fields like person, date, place detail, description, things like that. The source template, when you create that, you actually tell it what the fields are. So in other words, a field, a source template for a book might have a template with fields title, author, publisher, and page number. Whereas a census template might have a lot more fields like year, the census year, the country, the enumeration district, the supervisor district, the page, all types of fields. And we're going to show you those in just a little bit. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at what a sentence template, how a sentence template is used. I'm going to go into Dr. Johnny Boy Doe's edit screen, and I'm going to highlight his birth event. Now, when I highlight his birth event, in addition to the fields over here, the date, the place details, and so on, right down here at the bottom, RootsMagic is going to show you, here's what a sentence is going to look like for this person when you print a book or create a, whatever. Okay, now you'll notice that if I go up here and change from 1800 to 1801, if you watch that sentence template, it changes on the fly. Because what RootsMagic is doing is it's plugging this data into those fields. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and cancel, and I'm going to go to the death fact, and you're going to see it basically is the same type of thing. Dr. John Doe died on this date. Now you'll notice it's got a little extra something, at the age of 90 in Avon Polk, Iowa, United States. Okay, so that's another field that you can put into a sentence template, is age. And RootsMagic will put in the age that that event happened. And that's kind of nice on a lot of events. Don't bother using it for the birth event because it will always say at the age of 0. But many other events, if it's something you want it to say what age that person was on that date, then go ahead and put that in. Okay, so that's an overview of what a sentence template is going to do. Now, what I want to do is show you where and how you can actually change those sentence templates. Okay, what you're going to do is you're going to go up to the Lists menu, and you're going to come down here to the Fact Type list. And what this is going to do is bring up a list of every fact type in the program that you've got defined. And you can go design new fact types if you want, but we're going to look at just a couple of the ones that are built in. Let's look at birth, since that's the one we were doing. When I click on birth, you're going to see right here, here's the sentence template for birth. And it basically is very similar to the example I gave you. Person was born, date, place. It did add another one here called place details. If you remember in RootsMagic, we actually have a place field, which is for the city, county, state, country, but we also have a field for place details, which can be where you put the hospital that a person was born in, the cemetery where a person was buried, the street address where a person resided. And so RootsMagic takes care of the place details as well. The second thing you'll notice are these little angle brackets. And you'll see that the angle brackets are around these particular fields. And one thing you'll notice is that, for example, on date, it has the angle bracket, and then there's a space, and then the date field, and then a closed angle bracket. And the others do the same thing. There's a space, and then the field, space, and then the field. Okay? What the angle brackets do is they say, if this field is blank, don't print anything in between the angle brackets. Okay? And so basically what that means is if I don't have a date, it's going to say was born in this place. It's not even going to put the date, and it's not going to put that extra space. If what I did was put person was born, date, place, details, and place, and put a space between each one of those, if there was no date and no place details, it would have still put the space. It would have said was born, then it would have printed the space, and then it would have said don't print a date because there is none, then print this space, then don't print the place details because there are none, then print the space, then print place. So you would have had person was born, space, space, space in New York. Okay, that's what these angle brackets are for, is they say if that date field, if there is no date, don't print the date, but not only that, don't print anything else between the angle brackets, so it's not going to print the space. So it would say person was born, don't print any of that, don't print any of that, print one space in New York. So that's what the angle brackets are for. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and click on edit to edit this fact type. And when you're editing a fact type, you can go in and choose whether or not to use different fields, where that fact type can be used. But this is the section right here that we're going to look at. Okay, now you'll see right here, right now there are 3 roles. Now by default, when you start RootsMagic, there's only going to be 2 roles, principal and witness. Doctor won't be there. Roles are useful if you are going to use what are called shared facts. And we're not going to really talk about shared facts here, but what shared facts do let you do is add a fact type to a person, like a birth. I can add a birth to a person, but then I can say I want to share this fact with these other people in the file. And this other person was a witness of the birth. This other person was the doctor who delivered the person. And each one of these roles can have a sentence template. Now, every fact type in the file, every fact type here is going to have a principal role. That's the one fact type that it will have, or the one role type that it will have. And principal just means when it prints this person's birth, what are you going to say? And that's what it's going to say. Person was born on this date in this place. If you shared it and said this person was a witness, then it would say this person witnessed the birth of the person on this date in this place. If it was a doctor, this person delivered the person we're talking about on this date in this place. So like I say, don't really worry too much about these. We'll come back in another webinar where we talk about shared events, and we will talk about how to create these sentence templates for shared events. The main one we want is the principal. So I'm going to come up, I'm going to say edit that role, and this is where I can change this. Now, I could change this so that if let's say I want it to say was hatched, okay? And so if I do that, what's going to happen is every time somebody's birth is encountered, instead of saying John Doe was born, it's going to say John Doe was hatched. So let's go ahead and hop out of here. I'm going to go back in this. When I highlight birth, there you'll see right there, Dr. John Doe was hatched. Okay. Anything I change from that screen that we were on, in other words, lists, fact type list, any sentence templates I change there is going to affect every person in the file. So if I come back here and I go to Mary Smith and select her birth, it's going to say Mary Smith was hatched. So I've changed that sentence template for everybody. Okay, now I'm going to go back in again. I'm going to go back into the fact type list, and we're going to edit the birth again. And we're going to edit that principal role. That's what we're going to edit right there. And I'm going to change that back to bird. Born. Was born. Okay? So when I go back into here, it's going to say Dr. John was born again. Now, since customizing or editing that template from the fact type list changes it for everybody, what if that template works for almost everybody, but there's a handful of people that we actually want it to work a little bit differently? That's what this customized sentence is for. So I can leave that saying so-and-so was born on this date in this place, but if I want him to actually be changed just for him, I can customize the sentence. And when I do that, it's going to have that exact same template, but I can modify that template. Okay? And so if I come in here and at this point I say was hatched, okay, then it is going to say Dr. John was hatched, but everybody else's is going to say was born. Okay? Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go, one of the things you'll notice is in this particular screen, when I'm entering this sentence template, you'll notice that right down here, it's showing you what it's going to look like. So when I change this to was born, okay, it's going to show it was born. Okay. I'm going to show you a few things that you can do. We're not going to go into a lot of detail on this, but this is just to give you kind of an example or an idea of some of the things you can do with the sentence templates. You remember I said that there were, actually I'm not going to do it on this particular one. I'm going to do it on the death, customize the death one, because this one has a couple of extra fields that the birth doesn't. It has this one called description, and it also has this one called age, person age. And so that's why it's going to say Dr. John Boy died on this date at the age of 90. Okay. Now, you'll notice that it says he died on this date. Well, there's this description field, but the description field is blank. But it didn't print that extra space because it's in the angle brackets. If I were to come out of here and in that description put of old age, in other words, put the reason, you're going to see that it changed it. Dr. John Doe died of old age on this date at the age of 90. Okay, so what it's doing, when RootsMagic encounters this template, it's saying take his name and put it in there. Take the description of old age and put it in there. Take the date and put it in there. And then it calculates the age. Okay, and it basically says take this minus this and calculate that age. Now, if there is not a birth date, RootsMagic can't calculate an age. It doesn't know how old it is, so it will leave this blank. So if you put age and you don't have a birth date, it'll leave that blank because it can't calculate the age. Okay, place details, there are no place details, so it left that blank. And then it said take the place and replace this with that. Okay, now we can get even fancier. Okay, hopefully I haven't completely lost everybody here. That's why I said we're going to have a separate webinar or a set of webinars on doing just customization, so that once you're comfortable with what a sentence template is and how you can go in and make little minor changes, you can then move on to these what are going to be more advanced webinars on customizing these templates. But you can do things like modifiers. There's a thing called modifier. Any of these fields, you can have what's called a modifier. And that right there, you'll see right there, person, age. Age is a modifier. And what that does is says, take what normally would print out and modify it. So right now, for person, it's printing Dr. John, Johnny Boy Doe. Well, if I said person, surname, it's only going to print his surname. So it's still the person, but the modifier is saying only the surname. Okay? I could also say nickname, and it's only going to print the nickname. Okay? This is good. I can also do things like person reverse. Okay? And now hold on a second. Okay, given nickname, reverse. Well, actually, that's not going to do it. It's going to be reverse. What reverse is going to do is it actually should say Doe, John. Let me hop out of here and go back in. For some reason, it's kind of seems like it's lost its brain. Well, just trust me. If I put reverse, it's going to do Doe, John. This little example here actually kind of pulls some little tricks right here. But you can also do things like person, he, she, things like that. Okay. The other place the thing you can do is there's a modifier called plain, P-L-A-I-N. And as I mentioned, RootsMagic right now, when you put the place field in, it puts in. So it's going to say in Avon. But if I say place, plain, you'll notice it doesn't put the word in. Plain means display or print this exactly like the user entered it. Don't put anything else fancy in it. Now, why might you use that? Well, maybe you, instead of having flowing sentences where it's going to say da-da-da, maybe you just want it in parentheses. Okay? So you can actually say place, plain, and if you put parentheses, they're going to print just like regular old text. Okay? Now, you can actually get fancier. Let's say you want to put some formatting in. Okay? Let's say you wanted to put in something bold. Let's say, so if I can put angle brackets with bold. Okay, and actually I think I probably have to put those outside of here. Actually, this example, okay, it will do it. It just doesn't do it in that sample. But you can use those formatting characters to actually have text in bold or italics or underlining, things like that. I just realized that this is just a simple text field which can't handle bold and italics, so that's why it's not displaying there. But it would display on the printouts that way. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to hop out of here and I am going to show you all the possibilities, because as I mentioned, we don't have time to go through all of the nitty-gritty things you can do, and so I'm going to just give you an overview. If you go to Help and then Contents, and you bring up the RootsMagic Help screen, go to the Index tab, and then type in Template. And you're going to see one right here called Template Language. Just double-click on that. RootsMagic's going to offer the sentence template language or the source template language. It doesn't matter. Pick either one because they're both going to be the exact same information. And in fact, it's going to tell you right here, sentence template language. This help ID item is common to both sentence and sources because of the fact that they're so similar. Okay. If you really want to get into details on these sentence templates, this first section right here is going to talk about the fields, which we mentioned. And here's what I was telling you about. You can put italics or bold or any of those kind of things. Okay, what I want to show you, these are the fields that you have available when you're writing a sentence template. Person, of course, that's going to give you the person's name. For family events like marriage, divorce, whatever, you can also use spouse, couple, husband, or wife. Okay, so you could basically, couple is going to be, John Doe and Mary Smith. Spouse is going to be just whatever the spouse's name, and husband is going to be just the husband, wife is going to be just the wife. And again, those modifiers can be used on any of these exactly the same way that we did on the place. These others, this person, other person's role, field numbers, these are used when you're using shared events, okay? And they're probably a lot more advanced than we want to get into right now, but if you're using a shared event, this person basically means the person we're talking about, the person that is the witness, okay? In other words, if the person that you have shared that event with and person is the original owner of that event, okay? And like I say, in these future webinars, we will cover that. Here are other fields that are available: date, place details, and description. As I mentioned, source fields, you create them yourself, and we're going to talk about those in just a little bit. So far, we've limited ourselves to just the sentence templates, but we're going to show you how to do the source templates, and they can actually get quite a bit more complex even than the sentence templates. Okay, field options. This is where you can get into those modifiers we were talking about. So you have modifiers for capitalization. Okay, in other words, upper. If I put person : upper, it's going to print his entire name uppercase, just like that. Lower, it's going to lowercase it. Caps, it's going to capitalize the very first letter and make no other changes, John Doe. And proper is going to capitalize the first letter of each part of whatever it is, whether it's a place, a name, a person's name, or whatever. Abbreviation, these are used on the source templates. And see, right here, you'll see what type of fields. These are usable anywhere. Abbreviation and no abbreviation are used in source templates. When we talk about customizing in future webinars, we will talk about the abbreviation options. Here's other options. These are the ones that I was talking to you about. Full. By default, full is going to be the modifier for a name. So if you say person, that's the same as person : full. Okay, it's going to be the full name. Reverse, there's the one where it reverses the name. You can get the given name, the first name. Okay, they're a little bit different. The given name is going to be everything in the given name field. The first is going to only be the first part of the given name field. You can have the surname, the prefix, the suffix, the nickname, and the casual. Casual is basically going to be the nickname of the person, otherwise the first name. Casual is useful in sentences where you don't want it to kind of keep saying, John Doe did this, John Doe did this, John Doe did this, where it puts his entire name out every time. It's going to basically use a casual name, so it kind of gives your story a little bit more of a casual flow. Age options. If you have age, if you put age : plain, it's just going to put 90 or 83 or whatever the age. It's just going to print that number so that you can write the text exactly the way you want it around it. At, if you have age : at, that's the default, and that's the one that says at the age of whatever. Okay, commas, that's going to just put it, when it displays it, it's going to put comma, age 15, comma. He died at the age of, he died, comma, age 15, comma, in this place, in this date. Okay, fact place options. Okay, original and short. So when you're entering when you have a place for a fact, one of the things you can do is you can put, when you edit go into the master place list, you can enter a short name. So instead of saying, you know, Ogden, comma, Davis, comma, Utah, comma, United States, you could just say Ogden, Utah. And if you tell it to use that short place, it will shorten that. That's similar to the casual for the name. It's just kind of a way to do that. Here's your various place options. Rather than get into all the detail, just go ahead and look at this, and it's going to tell you date options. There's person options. There's cycling options, and basically the cycle option, that's the default. What that does is the first time it prints the person's name, it's going to print their full name. John Doe was born on this date. Then it's going to go to he did this, and then it's going to say John did that. So it's going to kind of alternate between he and she and just kind of that casual name John. And so that's why your books don't always say John Smith did this, John Smith did this, John Smith did this, John Smith did this. That's because this is a default, this cycle, and it's just designed to do that. If you put no cycle, it's going to do the name the exact same way every time. Formatting codes. Here's where you can do your italics, your bold, your underlining, your small caps, which is it's like this, where capital letters are everything's in caps, but the uppercase are just a little bit larger. Superscript and subscript. So if you want to superscript and subscript things, you can do that. Finally, you have switches, and we're not going to talk about switches here. We will talk about those in those customizing. But this is basically like a programming language. This is where you can really, really get fancy. You can have simple switches where it basically chooses the first available piece of information that's available. You have value switches where it'll actually let you can enter like an expression, and it will show this if it's true and show this if it's false. You have gender switches. If they're male, show it this way. If they're female, show it that way. Okay, as an example, he was an actor, she was an actress. So basically, that sentence template would actually give you the ability to have one sentence template that can take care of whether it's male or female, actor or actress. You can have switches based on whether they're living. Okay, he has brown hair if he's living. He had brown hair, you know, if he's not living. Okay, plural switches. Okay, and this is basically if there's more than one versus one. Private switches. Okay, this is mainly used. You'll see this in the source templates. If the fact is private, or if the source is marked as private, you can have it print one thing for if it's not private and something else if it is private. Escape characters, that's if you actually want to use the angle brackets or one of these field characters in your sentence, you precede it with a slash, and that basically tells RootsMagic actually print a square bracket. This is not part of a field. And then the last thing, switches within switches. These switches can be nested inside of each other, and so you can get really, really powerful templates using that. Like I say, we just wanted to kind of give you an overview of how that might work, the kind of the possibilities you have. But these future webinars, we will go into more detail on how to actually create some of these very, very powerful templates. Okay, so now let's go ahead and take a look at source templates. We've talked about sentence templates, about how I can go to fact type list and edit the sentence template globally for that fact type, so that every time that birth needs to have a sentence done for it, it's done that same way. And we also showed you how you can go into a person's individual screen and customize that for just that one person. So now let's go ahead and talk about sources. And before we do that, I'm going to show you an example of what we're talking about with source templates. Okay, I'm going to go in and I'm going to say, let's say I want to add a birth source. So I'm going to go into the sources and I'm going to say I want to add a new source. Well, when I do that, I have one option, which is a free-form source. And the freeform source is the one source that does not use templates. That's one where you just type in whatever you want and say that's the footnote. Everything else here, everything else has a template. And so you choose what type of a source you're entering. Let's say it happens to be a family Bible. Well, when I say I want to add a family Bible source and click OK, you're going to see RootsMagic, instead of just asking for generic information, it's asking for information specific to this type of source, to a family Bible. It's asking for fields. These are fields specific to a family Bible. And as I type information into these fields, RootsMagic is going to write the properly formatted footnote, short footnote, and bibliography. So a source template is actually really 3 templates. Okay, there's a template that says here's how a footnote should be done. There's a template that says here's how a short footnote should be done. And there's a template that says here's how a bibliography should be done. And those templates are filled in with the data from these fields. Now, as I mentioned, with a sentence template, you basically work from a set of predefined fields: person, date, place detail, place, description, age. You know, there's a handful of predefined fields that you can use with sentences. With a source, when you create a source template, you add all of these fields. And so you can add any kind of fields you want. And a field can be like a plain old text. It can be a name. It can be a place. You know, so you can kind of choose what type of field it is, so RootsMagic knows how to handle it. Now, as I type something in, watch, as I type the original owner, you'll see over here it updates those templates. So if I put John Doe, okay, and you'll see that it's now John Doe Family Bible Records. The dates, okay, the dates of the records, 1800 to 1830. Okay, it actually puts that right in there. The title, New Something Bible. Okay, and it's going to put that New Something Bible. The edition. Okay, now I could leave that blank, or I could go ahead and put second edition. Now you'll notice when I typed in second edition, it actually added that comma right there. See, if I'm going to go take that back out. As I take that back out, you'll see there's not a comma right there after a New Something Bible. But as soon as I start typing S-E-C-O-N-D edition, RootsMagic puts a comma in there. And that's something that those templates are available to do, are allowed to do using that angle bracket thing I mentioned. And we'll show you that, like I say, in the customizing webinars. So this right here is what a sentence template does for me. So let's go look at this. Let's go look at this Family Bible template. So I'm going to hop back out of here. I'm going to go to List, and then I'm going to go to the Source Templates. And here's all those sources we had, and I'm going to go to the Family Bible Private. Okay. Now, over here, you're going to see a bunch of stuff that looks like, you know, if you're not a programmer, it may look like hieroglyphics here to you. So what we're going to do is we need to, when we create a template, we have to create the fields, and we have to create those 3 templates. So I'm going to go ahead and edit this one so you can kind of see. Oh, that's right. I can't edit a built-in source template. These templates that are built into RootsMagic are based on evidence explained, and what we don't want is for you to go in and completely mangle up the built-in templates. So you can't edit a built-in one. But what you can do is select a template that already exists. If you want one, if you want a template that's pretty close to one that's already in there, select it and then choose copy. Do I want to make a copy? And it'll say yes. And so now there's the template that is built in, and here's the one that's a copy. It says copy. Okay, now I'm going to edit that one. And see, that one I can edit. So I can give it a new name. I can leave the name like that, or I can call it My Family Bible. Some people will do things like put an underscore in front of it so that all the ones they created themselves sort to the top of the list. It's kind of up to you, however you want to do that. Now there's two sections in this screen when you're going to create a source template. There's this section right here, and this is where you create the fields. Okay, with the sentence template, as I said, the fields are already predefined, and you can only pick from the ones we've created for you. With a source, since every source type is completely different, it's up to you to create the fields. So you're going to give, each field is going to get a field name, original owner, the dates, the title, the edition, publisher, place. Okay, these are the fields. If you remember that example I gave you, original owner, I typed in John Doe. Dates, I typed in 1830 or 1800 to 1830. Title, I typed in, New something Bible. Edition, I typed in second edition. So this is the field name, and you put the little square brackets around it, just like you do with the sentence templates. The display name, this is the name that actually was shown, and we do that because you don't necessarily want to see original owner with no spaces. This is just a prettier way of showing you the same thing. Published place, pub place. You can abbreviate your field names if you want. This is a very important thing that you need to add for each field. What type of field is it? Is it a name? Is it text? Is it place? Or is it a date? Those are your four options. Text, name, place, date. The reason you need to select what type of field that is so that RootsMagic knows how to apply those modifiers. Remember the modifiers we told you about? Plain, reverse, things like that. Okay, RootsMagic can still use those modifiers in the source templates. Okay, and in fact, you'll see that right here. Original owner, I said it was a name. In the footnote template, the first thing that it has is the original owner, which is where it said John Doe Family Bible Records. Okay, if you had looked, and I didn't point it out, and I should have, in the bibliography it wrote Doe, John, and that's because we used the original owner field, but we used the modifier reverse. And that's why we have to say this is a name, so RootsMagic knows how to reverse a name versus reversing a place, because you can reverse places and you can reverse names, but the program has to do them differently. Okay, so that's why it's important to do that. The next section, this is details. And what the detail means, you'll notice there's only one item that's a detail in this particular one, and that's the page. The detail is where you can say whether or not this field is part of the master source or the citation source detail. And if you're not sure what I mean by that, go back and watch one of the really early webinars we did on sources, where we discuss what a master source and the source details are. But this actually lets you go in, and if you want to move some of your fields from the master source to the details, or from the details up to the master source, this is where you can do it, is by selecting that. The last field right here is a hint. And the hint, this is what RootsMagic puts at that light gray inside of the field, the little hint. Okay, so let me go back. I'm going to come back to here, but I'm going to go back in here, and we're going to go to source so I can point out those things we just talked about. Add source. We're going to do the Family Bible, and I'm going to select that. This is the hint, that gray thing. Whatever you put as the hint, that's going to show as the hint right there, where you can, and it's just some text that happens to be there to give a person more information about that particular field. This right here is the one where it said the display name, okay, published place as opposed to pub place. That's the display name. And this yellow area versus this green area, that is your master source versus the source details. So for example, let's say you decided that you wanted this analysis of the handwriting, whatever. Let's say you wanted that as part of the details instead of the master source. What you would do is you'd go edit that in that particular field and say that's now a detail field, and it will show up. It will show up down here. Okay, let's go back to where we were. We were in the source templates, and we were looking at Family Bible. We were looking at the copy so that we could edit that. Okay, finally, this section right here is where you're going to type those templates. Okay, now, as I mentioned, I'm not even going to try to get into trying to show you how to customize these in this particular webinar. Like I say, we're going to have a whole webinar just on how to do this. But this, as you can see, these built-in templates, they are very sophisticated. You know, they know when something's italicized. They know when something should or shouldn't be included. If you remember, I pointed out that when I was typing in that footnote, when I typed in second edition, remember I told you that a comma showed up? That if I didn't type in second edition, there was no comma, but as soon as I started typing it, the comma appeared. This is why right here, if you look at that section right there that's highlighted, I have the angle brackets with that leading space, but I also have the comma in there. If you remember, I explained that the angle brackets mean if this field exists, print everything between the angle brackets. If this field doesn't exist, don't print anything. So if there was no addition, if I hadn't typed in addition, it's not going to print the comma or the space or the addition that doesn't exist. But if I do have an addition, if I start typing second edition, in addition to the word second edition, I'm also going to get the comma, space, and that. So that's the flexibility of those angle brackets to allow you to include leading characters, things like that. Here, as an example, we aren't going to go into that. The little exclamation mark, this is going to show, this is the privacy switch that we mentioned. Okay, and it's basically saying, hey, if this is not private, print the owner's address. But if it is private, print the words address for private use in the small caps, using small caps. That's that formatting. And so it'll print that in small caps. So you can see these are actually very, very powerful templates. One last thing I'm going to do here before we look at questions and stuff is I'm going to bring up the edit screen so you can see what it looks like when you add or edit one of these fields. When I click on edit the field, there's your field name. There's where you choose what type of field it is, text, name, place, or date. There's your display name. This is the name displayed in the source wizard. There's your brief hint. And you can actually create, one of the things I didn't show you, you can actually create a long hint. Okay, so this long hint, you could put, this is a long hint which goes into so much detail that it couldn't possibly fit in the field on the screen. And so you can get as much as you want. You can get as fancy as you want. Click OK, and I've saved it. And so now you'll see that I have one of those. Now, the one thing I was going to show you, the provenance, or no, it was the analysis. The analysis. If I go in and I'm going to edit that, if I say I want that analysis to be part of the source detail, I just check that. Okay? And so now that's going to be part of the detail field. We're going to go back and actually show you a couple of these changes we just made. The other thing is you can rearrange these fields. So if instead of the owner, original owner, if I want the title of the Bible to be first, I just highlight it and rearrange it. I just move it up. So I can go in, I can delete fields. Be careful if you delete fields though, because if you delete a field and that field is used in the template, that whatever over here in the template, it's never going to show up because you're never giving the user the opportunity to enter that information. So I've moved title to the beginning, and so let's go ahead and click OK, and let's go back in and say we want to add a source, and the source type that we want to add is a family Bible. We want to use the copy because that's the one we've been modifying. Okay. Now you'll see title is now that first field because I rearranged it. Okay. Before it was original owner, I rearranged it. It still works the same way it did before. It's just I can move fields up, that are maybe more likely to be ones that I'm actually going to fill in, and keep the ones that maybe I'm not going to fill in most of the time down towards the bottom. The second thing, analysis. I moved the analysis down here, so it's now part of the source details instead of part of the master source. And you're also going to notice a little button right here for original owner because I had added, if you remember, I added a long hint. And so if I come and I click on that, that's going to bring up that long hint. Okay, the long hint which couldn't possibly fit in the field on the screen. So that's a quick overview, or maybe not quick, but it is an overview of what a sentence template is, what a source template is, where they're used, and where you can actually go in and modify, create and modify those. As I mentioned, we're going to have a couple more webinars where we're going to go into, instead of how to use them and where they appear, we're going to have webinars purely on how to create custom sentence templates, how to create custom source templates we can use some of those more advanced features. So let's go ahead and look at some of the questions. One of the questions is, do template changes that we make carry over when we go to a new version of RootsMagic, when we have a RootsMagic upgrade? The answer is yes. Whenever you upgrade the program, these sentence templates and these source templates are stored inside of your database. So if you upgrade to a new version, they are still available for you to use. Kind of a follow-up question is, if I create a new source template, yes, that's stored in the database. What happens if I create a new database? Are those new source templates there? The answer to that is no. But what you can do is when you go up into the list and go into the source template list, you can go in and highlight a fact type. So if I go back into the family Bible, into that source template that I created, I can come up here and I can export. Okay, I go in here and export that, so I can enter a file name, and it will export that source template to a little file on my disk. I can go into the other database, and I can click on import, and I can import that file, and I now have that source template in my other database. So that's what the export and import are for, is to let you be able to move one of these source templates from one database to another database. Okay, let's see what else we got here. Other questions. Okay. Can you only export one at a time? And the answer is currently yes, you can only export one at a time. We're trying to decide whether it actually makes sense to let you export and import a bunch of them at once. It probably does, but like I say, right now at this moment it is only exporting and importing one at a time. Okay, in the webinar regarding more specifics, discuss superscripts and subscripts, and we will do that. Are we going to show where to find all the field variables? And we did show you that. I will show you that once more. If you want to see where all the different kinds of things you can use in the templates are, again, you go to Help, you go to the Contents, or you can just press the F1 key, and go to the Index tab, and type in template. And then that will bring up template language. Just double click on that and choose either one of them because they're the same thing. And that's where you're going to find all of the fields, all the modifiers, and all of the switches, the formatting codes, kind of everything that's available. If you want to experiment with those, a good place to experiment with those is you can go to a field, go into customize sentence, and you can come in here and you can just start playing with it for the sentence templates. You can just play with it. If you mangle it beyond recognition, just click reset to default and it will reset this. So if I come in here and I say, person, nickname, was born you know, whatever, and you want it in parentheses and whatever, and you go in here and play with this and just experiment with, if I enter this in here, this is what it's going to do. And when you're done, you can actually either just click cancel, because it's not going to hold those changes until you click OK. You can either click cancel or click reset to default, and it'll set it back to where it goes. So that little customized sentence is a good place to kind of experiment with creating the sentence templates. Okay. Would you use the customized sentence if you wanted to add that the person was born a twin, triplet, etc.? You could modify it there. You could modify the template there, or you could just put it into the note, the birth note for that person. It kind of depends on how you wanted to do it. You could, like, I could come in here and customize the template, and I could put was born a twin. Okay, and then save it right there. And so then the sentence would say, Dr. John Doe was born a twin on this date. You know, so if you wanted it to actually modify the sentence itself, if you actually wanted the sentence to say he was a twin, yes, that would be a very good place to do it, because it's only going to customize it right in this for this one person, not for everybody else. Like I say, or you could say was born on this date, and then in the note you could say, you know, he was born a twin. So kind of however you wanted to do that. Okay, let's see. A question: when the death date is after 12 November 1925, let's go ahead and do that. We can see they say it's confusing. After 12 November 1925, oops. And what the sentence is going to say is, let me take off some of this stuff so it clears this up. He died after 12 November 1925. I'm not sure that, to me that doesn't sound confusing, but because RootsMagic does try to do that smart. So to me that it sounds right. So maybe I'm misunderstanding what the question is. If you do enter a date or a place and it does sound confusing down here, again, that's another reason for go ahead and customizing that sentence to get around those kinds of things. So if you use GEDCOM does preserve your sentence templates. If you use drag and drop, in other words, if you move over an entire database, the drag and drop will take your sentence templates as well. You know, so we've tried to make it so that you're not going to lose, and then the source templates as well. You know, the source templates will go over. If you drag and drop, your source templates will, and GEDCOM, it will preserve those as well. So it doesn't look like there's really any other different questions. So hopefully you've enjoyed this particular webinar. Hopefully we've been able to kind of show you what source templates are, what sentence templates are, where you find them, kind of a short, brief overview of how to edit them. And if what you want is a little bit more meat and potatoes on customizing those, keep an eye out for our future webinars. We'll have one webinar at least on customizing sentence templates and another one on customizing source templates. So until then, have a great day, and we'll see you again soon.